Hike.
What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to another one of our Vegas win total previews for the 2022 season. I'm Spencer Davis with Saturday Road. That is Derek Peterson with Saturday Out West. Today, we're going to be talking about Arizona State. It would be hard to find a team in the country that was more decimated by the transfer portal this offseason. And yet, when you look at some of these numbers, this team is hardly expected to be Kansas this year. I mean, they're going to win a few games, it sounds like, at least if you believe what these win totals are set at, both with FPI and with FanDuel. Let's start off with FPI, which may not be totally in the know. FPI is projecting Arizona State for 7.7 wins, which seems extraordinarily high given how much turnover this program has had over the last few weeks. Do I have that? Do you agree with that, Derek, as somebody who's following this a little bit more closely?
Yeah, I don't know if their number has changed since it first came. It has not. Okay, so that 7.7 win projection, that came out prior to Emory Jones committing to Arizona State, the Florida transfer quarterback. So that 7.7 win projection came out when Arizona State had two quarterbacks on its roster who basically have never played a game. They had a backup last year who threw 10 passes, and then they had the Alabama transfer in Paul Tyson. And if you're coming from Alabama as your quarterback and you're not like one of three guys, like you haven't seen the field in like 6 years. So that number shocked a lot of people when it came out. FPI was super high on Arizona State. And then I know you asked about FPI, but then FanDuel came out, and initially the win total that they listed for Arizona State was 6.5, which was the same number as Oregon State and one win more than Washington State, who a lot of people like in the North. And again, that number surprised a ton of people. There's it's one of those situations where there's a lot of doom and gloom from the outside looking in on Tempe. And then in Tempe, some of the stuff that I read, some of the stuff that I listen to, there is a sense of like, okay, we're so focused on what has left via the transfer portal and what has, exhausted players that have exhausted eligibility, gone to the NFL draft, what have you. And there's such little focus on what Arizona State has gained back from the transfer portal, because they have added some pieces via the portal. A couple pieces that I really like. And, the Athletics Arizona State writer did a piece basically asking, what are we missing with Arizona State? Why is the difference in perception of this program and what FPI, what FanDuel, what Vegas, what some of the models see is potentially coming in 2022? Like, why is the difference so large? And I think I think maybe part of it is a little bit of an overreaction. Let me run through statistically what they've lost. So they had a quarterback. They had two quarterbacks attempt a pass last year. One guy threw 300 pass attempts. One guy threw 10. The guy that threw 300, Jaden Daniels, left for LSU. They had four running backs carry the ball at least, or four players, carry the ball at least 50 times. Jaden Daniels was one of those. 3 of those 4 players left. So their top 2 running backs are gone. They had, 7 players catch at least 10 passes last year in the pass game. 5 of those players are gone. 5 of their top 7 snap getters on the offensive line are gone. And then 8 of their top 11 tacklers from last season are gone. So there is a ton of turnover. And I think a little bit of, that what are we missing with Arizona State? A little bit of that difference, I think, is maybe just overreaction to how much has left. They lost their top running back. They lost their top quarterback. They lost their top pass catcher. And some of those guys hit the transfer portal after the spring period ended. So it's one of those situations where, there's a sense that some kind of notice of allegations is coming from the NCAA over recruiting violations that occurred during the COVID year. And that kind of investigation by the NCAA has caused both coordinators to exit the program and a couple other assistant coaches to exit the program. There's just so much new with Arizona State.
It's a lot of drama.
Yeah, you just don't really know what
Yeah.
is coming. So I think I think it's just there's been so much that's left. It's just hard to really be like, yeah, this team can win 8 games again.
Yeah. When I'm looking at, trying to find reasons to bet an over or bet an under, like a program like this that has so much drama on top of all the lost production that you just outlined, like even the current FanDuel line, you mentioned FanDuel opened at 6.5 wins for the regular season win total. That number as of recording has dropped to 5.5. And I still kind of like the under. Maybe you're getting on into it a little bit late. So maybe, you don't want to chase that number, but man, I mean, let's look at the schedule. So I see 2 automatic wins for Arizona State, and that's it. Northern Arizona and Eastern Michigan.
Yeah, they both come in the first 3 weeks of the season.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, not that they're not going to win any others, but those are you can take it to the bank right now. They're going to win those games, and that's it. Northern Arizona and Eastern Michigan.
Yeah, they both come in the first 3 weeks of the season.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, like, not that they're not going to win any others, but those are you can take it to the bank right now. They're going to win those games. Okay. Their only other non-conference game is in Stillwater to play an Oklahoma State team that, lost a ton on defense last year. Their defense was awesome last season, but it was full of 23, 24-year-old grown men. And so they lost a lot of that. But Spencer Sanders is back at quarterback, so they may have an edge there. I think
that team has conference title aspirations.
Yeah, they're going to be ranked in the top 25. I see Stanford and Colorado. And then just going by the FPI numbers, I have at Washington State and then Oregon State down. But you and I both like those teams. Like those are also very, easily could lose, especially in Pullman to Washington State. And then Oregon State won't be easy either, even though that one's at home. And then the rest of it, man, are teams that are just way more talented than them, or in the case of Arizona, it's just a rivalry game. That one's on the road. Like that's an automatic danger game no matter what.
Yeah.
But Oklahoma State, Utah, USC, Washington, UCLA, all those teams are just way more talented. And so, like, you're looking at 7 potential wins, in my opinion, and you're saying you got to go to clear this over. You'd have to go 6-1 for a team that's had this much drama, this much, having turnover on the coaching staff and on the roster. I just don't see 6 wins here.
Well, the other thing that's working against Arizona State is all of the uncertainty around the head coach and sort of the narrative that has been spun about Herm Edwards, that he's on the hot seat, that he should be fired already. There's a few people that think that him and the athletic director should already be gone. The way that their schedule sets up, so they play Northern Arizona in week 1, then they go at Stillwater, they come back and play Eastern Michigan, then they've got Utah at home, USC on the road. So you're potentially looking at a 2-3 start to the season. And at that point, what is getting said about Herm Edwards? Especially if the Utah and the USC games end in lopsided fashion, what is getting said about Herm Edwards? What is getting written about Herm Edwards? What's the discussion around Arizona State? Because it can turn, even if they look good against Northern Arizona, they look good against Eastern Michigan. Let's say they're competitive against Oklahoma State. If they're not competitive in those 2 games to open conference play, things are going to get a little toxic, a little quick with Arizona State. And at that point, with so much new, you start to question, okay, what's the mettle of this team? What's the culture like? It's hard to have an established culture when there's so much new. How strong is it to be able to push through some of those things? You talk about probable wins. Like once you get past the non-conference, probable win, maybe the only one I see is Colorado. And that's not to say that, they're going to lose to Stanford. They're going to lose to Arizona. That's not what I'm saying. I just think that we just don't know. We don't know enough about the way they're going to look. And, also we don't know.
Low.
We don't know what
low.
Stanford's going to look like. We don't know what Arizona's going to look like. And they've got both those games on the road. Now, the thing that I will say in defense of Arizona State is Emory Jones stabilizes some stuff. And when he committed, there was a sense of like, okay, take a, exhale, take a breath. And then they got a wide receiver commit almost immediately after that, also from the SEC. They've got a transfer tight end coming in from Missouri. They've got a transfer running back from Wyoming who looks like he's I would say he's probably going to finish top 5 Pac-12 in terms of rushing yards. They've got the potential, despite all of the turnover, they've got the potential to have a pretty nasty defense. I like the Miami defensive tackle transfer that they added if he's healthy. Emory Jones is the guy. It's going to come down to what is the difference between him and Jayden Daniels? Because when Daniels left, they took a big step back in terms of their quarterback play. Then they added Emory Jones, and he's pretty similar in terms of skill set. It's going to be a new offense, so we're going to have to see sort of what the go-to is when something breaks down. What's the bailout procedure, things like that. But Emory Jones is a playmaker. He can make things happen with his feet. He can make things happen once the play breaks down. And sort of the transition from Jayden Daniels to him is going to be a little bit more seamless than it would have been from Jayden Daniels to, one of the guys that they went through spring ball with. The question that I have with Emory Jones is against top 50 defenses last year in the SEC. He had a 1-to-1 touchdown interception ratio, under 7 yards of pass attempt, and 63% completion percentage. Against non-top 50 defenses, 2-to-1 touchdown interception, 69% completion rate, and 9.1 yards per pass attempt. He was much better against the defenses that he should be beating. But, it seemed like there was just a sense all year long with Florida that fan base wanted Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
And so, Jayden Daniels was maligned. He was really good in 2019, and the numbers haven't been quite at that level in the years since. So, what's happening at their quarterback spot?
Yeah, I mean, Emory Jones is a guy who's streaky. I mean, the yards per attempt number there versus top 50 defense, we say it was 7.5, somewhere in that range.
Against top 50 defenses, 6.9.
6.9. Yeah, that's a scary number.
Okay.
I don't care about your completion percentage if the yards per attempt is that low. He's gonna run a little bit hot and cold. And Arizona State, if they're gonna make a bowl game and clear this over/under total, they're gonna have to win some of these road games, right? Like they're gonna have to win at Stanford, they're gonna have to win at Washington State. They may have to upset somebody like Washington, which is not impossible, and that's a home game, but they're going to have to really pull together, I think. And just nothing from what I've seen over the last few months coming out of that place has given me any confidence that this is a program that's going to do that. So,
well, to close this out real quick, on that point, there has been, there was a offensive lineman that pulled out of the transfer portal and talked about loyalty shortly after Emory Jones committed. And there's been a little bit more of a, we're all we got, we're all we need kind of vibe that I've seen coming from certain players on social media. So if they take that kind of us against the world approach, if they take that, we're going to shock some people, we're going to prove some people wrong approach. I mean, they've got talent on the roster. It's just a matter of how much does all the outside stuff banging on the walls, how much does that rattle them?
Yep. All right. That's going to do it for us today. Appreciate you hanging with us, and we have a great rest of your day.